everybody? Welcome to another rendition of BanDam Talks, the show we're going to take anything from the world of music and we talk about it right here, right now. First, we're going to run down the panel we got today. We got the entire spread of the band. We got Mr. Nathan Spear himself.
Indeed.
And we got Mr. Dustin Parlier, bass player, guitar player. My name's Matthew Estes. So we're going to get right into this. In honor of us recording in this next weekend, we decided to make a little video about the top 3 things that we did wrong individually, personally, when we started recording for the first time. So we're going to run them down individually, go through them, and then we're kind of maybe talk about our number ones or kind of run through them there. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Dustin, we're going to start with you this time, man. What were the top 3 things, starting with number 3 to number 1, that you did wrong when you recorded, when you started out?
Well, when I first started recording songs, I actually didn't have any kind of gear. I didn't have any money. Like when I first started recording, I was in high school. I actually first started my first recording on Audacity with a Rock Band microphone. So that was pretty much the worst setup that you could ever imagine. So that was a mistake in and of itself. But I would say that
number 4.
But I would say that my first mistake that I did was I abused the hell out of reverb. I had used so much reverb on my voice, on the guitars, on drums, like anything I could think of. And I would use different types of reverb too, and so it doesn't sound like they're all in a room. It just sounds like all these individual instruments or voices or things in a weird space, and it didn't sound consistent. My second thing, because I'm a really big fan of like multi-layered guitar sounds, and just guitars that sound massive in recordings, and so the second mistake I made oftentimes was I put way too much distortion on a guitar when I would try to record, and I found it's better, to have like a little bit of distortion and have a few more tracks normally than you would if you just recorded one guitar. But I put so much distortion on it because I thought that's what I needed to make it sound meaty and ballsy as I could. But in the end, it actually just made it not sound very clear, and it just sounded like a wall fuzz more than anything else. And then lastly, I would say for me, when I first started, I don't really do it now, but I had a lot of inconsistent sounds in recordings because I wouldn't pay a lot of attention to where my mic placement was possibly, and when you're a musician that has to do a lot of other things too, you're busy, and so you're going, you might record part of a song and then you have to leave and do something else, and so since I wouldn't keep track of these things, my recordings throughout the song would probably be a little bit inconsistent sounding. And so I think it's just a really important note to make sure you keep track of what your settings are, where your mic's placed, what guitar you use, how you had your tone knobs, all those kinds of things. So.
Nice, man. Yeah, mics are super important. Yeah, we'll get back on that in a little bit. Those are yeah, I didn't think of those. That's awesome. So, man, Nate, what were your top 3 things that you did wrong when you started recording stuff?
So probably the 3 biggest things that I did wrong, without really knowing a whole lot about it, was first I would the biggest thing I remember was not using a pop screen for my first vocal tracks. This is bare bones, first starting recording,
way back in the day.
Know nothing about it. Using a pop screen to screen out the voice, so that your B's, your P's, your anything that makes it pop in the mic, just adding that one pop screen makes that sound so much smoother. It makes your vocal track sound a lot better. It kind of filters out a lot of the S, the hard S sounds, the B sounds, the P sounds. It just makes it sound a lot more smooth and a lot more professional sounding. So. Probably the first thing was adding a pop screen makes it sound a lot better, which is a really, honestly, cheap way to make it sound better.
Right.
Yeah.
And 2, kind of touching on what Dustin was saying. I mean, when I first started trying to record guitar tracks, I used to just load up the distortions, crank the gains, and I would wonder why when I was mixing it would sound muddy and shitty, honestly. And then eventually I figured out that if you turn down the gain and just have 2 or 3 different guitar tracks going at the same time that have relatively low gain, put together, they end up sounding huge. By themselves, they sound maybe not exactly what you want them to sound like, but when you combine them, they sound huge. So it's all about layering and properly having the finesse of being able to say like, oh well, I'm gonna combine this and this and this instead of just overloading and attracting distortion. And probably the last thing, the most important thing that I can think of when recording, at least guitar stuff anyway, is mic placement. Because so many folks, they'll hang the mic like right over the front of the cab, or if they have a boom stand, they'll stick it right in front of the cabinet and put it right in the center of the cone, which is great if you want a bright sound, but if you move the mic 1 inch to the left or right, or 1 inch back or forwards, it can make a huge difference on how it sounds. On one of our actually most recent videos where I sound demoed a matchless set that I have, I spent probably a good hour and a half just going through different mic placements to make it sound the best, because moving it even a half of an inch to the left or right made it sound different. And so mic placement is one of those things that you have, it's a matter of personal taste. There is no right or wrong way to do it, but you have to be able to say, hey, this is what I like. I want a fatter or thinner sound. I'm going to move this way, do this. And it really all just boils down to, what you think sounds the best and what you personally, through trial and error, find that matches your sound the best. So there really is no formulaic, right or wrong way to go about it, but it's all just about experimentation and being able to have the time to find out what you think sounds best. So mic placement is a huge thing that not a lot of people think about, and that's the one that I think about most often now that I didn't before. So mic placement is my biggest thing.
That's awesome. They're like 2 for mic placement on their number ones. That's awesome. I did not see that coming. See, these guys, what's cool is, and mine are a little different because I don't record as much at home as these guys do. They record a lot at home, and they know a lot more about recording. I don't know as much about recording. So these, personally, are my biggest, 3. If you're not really into, you don't really record much at home, these are what I did wrong. I usually do studio stuff. We've been doing studio stuff for a long time. He'll record, demos, and he'll record demos. But when we go out, to the recording studio, we'll go actually, get to a nice studio, record everything through what they got. And that's number 3 is not shopping around studios. We made some pretty big mistakes back in the day of recording and paying crazy amounts of money for all these we didn't know any better. We paid so much, and then we had to pay our sound guy. We paid him with beer because we didn't have money for it. And then then eventually we found this other studio where this other guy was he was so much better. He had so much more experience, and he was half the price. And they weren't dicks about it. And just we didn't stop, we didn't have any other option. We didn't look around. And that was probably one of our, if you want to save money, a big one. Be sure to shop around studios if you get a chance. Number 2, and this one caught me by surprise. It kind of goes back on their number 2, is doubling vocals. I did not know how much of a difference it would make when you doubled vocals. It is night and day. It makes you sound so good. Because back in the day when I did little demos on computer, I'd do 1-track vocal. And people be like, why don't you double? I'm like, why would you double it? It sounds like shit. And then once you take it down, they mixed it up, it sounded so good, so full. And I was like, what is that? That's awesome. So that was
doubling vocals was the auto-tune of the 50s and 60s. It's how all of your Beatles, Beach Boys records sound so good, because they would double everything perfectly. So it would sound like one track, but it sounds so full, so thick, so great.
So that's really awesome. That's number 2 across the board, is doubling something. So that is a huge difference. And I was a naysayer at first, but now I'm all about doubling everything. It's freaking awesome. But my number 1, when it comes to studio stuff, when going to a studio, is we're trying to record too many songs in one take. Trying to go for quantity and not quality. We had a lot of songs we practiced for hours and hours getting it just right so we could go in and record 5 songs. We try to do it in a 12-hour span. 5 songs in 12 hours. And you're like, oh, you can do that, song every 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that. It's just not at the end of the day, all you're going to do is have a bunch of rough cuts. You have no time. Everybody's tired. You have it's just terrible.
You pretty much have semi-polished demos is what you have.
Yeah.
And there is no really good professional sounding recording. There's just mostly
scratch tracks.
Exactly. And my thought was, we can save some money. And that's true, you do save money, but in the long run, you spend so much more money trying to fix all the stuff you did wrong. So what you're really going to want to do, and what we're going to do this time, we're going to kind of cheat on this. We're doing acoustic tunes. We're going to try to do 2 in a 12-hour span, which is, you know, for acoustic stuff should be fine, but like I would, you know, try to do no more than 2 in a 12-hour span. Try to do just one.
I would say for even just like a demo or like a rough like, you know, cut of a song, you probably need at least 4 to 5 hours of dedicated studio time to make it sound really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just assuming that you're not adding like 10 layers of shit to it. Like that's assuming that you're basically, you know, guitar, bass, you know, vocals, obviously, you know, drums, you know, any overdubs to any one of those.
Yeah, you're gonna want to get it done right. So if you want to get it done right, sit down, check out how many things you got to do. Like it's really hard to place time, but keep yourself plenty of time so you don't get winded, you don't get tired. You musicians don't get tired. You get breaks, and you can get the best sound you possibly can out of that day. And then you mix later. That's a whole other story. But
when you hear something or play something, you know, 50 plus times over and over and over again, even if you have the sharpest ear in the world, like you eventually lose sensitivity of being able to hear the difference in different, you know, EQs, different this to different that. I mean, you would have to take a break from what you're doing and leave it alone for a few days. Leave it be. Listen to a different mix of it and see how it sounds after the fact, because when you hear the same thing 150 times in a row, even if you change up, you know, the EQ or the anything with the song, like it's gonna sound the same because you've heard it so many damn times.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably the most important thing that I've learned from recording is come back to it the next day, and that's your true judgment of how it's gonna sound.
Fresh ears.
Because you don't have any of your bias of I've heard this, you know, 50 times today. I've heard it with this EQ, with this plugin, with this anything. When you hear it the first time the next day, after you've woken up and you're not listening to anything, that's how it's going to actually sound.
Yeah.
And that's how you can tell where to go.
Your ears are an adaptive audio system, which, like, it's a lot different than, you know, like your speakers and things like that. They usually adjust to a sound very accordingly and start to think it sounds a lot better after usually about 10 to 15 minutes. And so there's a reason why the pro studio engineers take breaks after every hour or so. And a lot of people, you know, they don't even listen to music that entire day to keep themselves completely
fresh,
open-minded. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So when they go into record, they don't have all these like preconceived notions about what, you know, this should sound like or whatever. So,
I mean, it's all biology. I mean, your senses are always like your skin gets used to your shirt that you're wearing, all that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing with ears, same thing with your nose. You know, you just get used to it. Your body adapts to it like it should. So it's awesome. It's a good thing if it does that. You want yours to do that for sure. But yeah, that's crazy. So let's do a recap. So your number one, we had 2 here for
we had
mic placement, right?
Yeah, mic placement.
So that was really awesome. You guys had both mic placement, and again, mine was just recording too many songs in one session. So what were you guys think? I mean, some of you guys have obviously recorded before, so what were your top things you did wrong? What did you do right? You know, we did a lot of things right, but these are the things we did wrong, and we're going to try not to do those again when we go in recording a week from now. So it's been awesome, but until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Nate.
And I'm Dustin.
We're BanDam. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Go like us on Facebook. Go listen to our music.
And we'll talk again soon.